why I don't wear these shirts, because I just don't understand. They don't like my shoulders. Oh no, I'm showing my shoulders. I'm gonna get demonetized. I don't get monetized anyway. Right, what am I salty about today? Let's look. My shitty art teacher. When I went to college, or sixth form, whatever you want to call it, it was a big shock. Especially because me and Aoife chose art and photography. And we had photography together, but we did not have art together. And I had this teacher for both art and photography, so I got the double whipping. Start off simple. He has a very, very big superiority complex. I hope I said that right. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at pronouncing things. But his ego was fucking... He believed he was better than everyone, and he believed his opinion mattered most. Like, he believed that he was always going to be right about your artwork. It was not right all the time. And let's just say, when I first joined, he hated Aoife and I. He continued on with Aoife, but like when we first turned up, he did not like us. I think he didn't like me because I was late once to the art lesson. That wasn't even my fault. The bus people, because I had to get 2 buses to college, they were training someone who didn't know where they were going, so they got lost and the bus was late. And then he was like, well, you should have accounted for that. I was like, I don't know the fucking bus training days, do I? That was the most annoying part of college, is they would shout at you for not like going in earlier. But like, I have such bad sleeping problems back then, and even now, like, I just don't see the point in getting up earlier and then just being way too early to college. Especially since it was like my first week or so, we weren't actually doing anything that important. What was the point of going in so early? I'm sorry, this subject just gets me pissed off immediately as soon as I talk about it. I think I talked about this a little bit in my art video, the 2015 to present one, but I'm gonna go more in depth about it now. So the first thing that happened that really ticked me off was we had sketchbooks, and apparently with sketchbooks you're meant to make them look really pretty and write down loads and loads of evaluations, and I can't even tell you now because I don't remember. Well, basically this teacher assumed that we had learnt all this in high school. But if you go back to my high school, we have really shitty art teachers. Like, they were good people and they were good to have a talk with. They were good at art and stuff like that, but they never taught us about this whole sketchbook thing. They never taught us about evaluations or the importance of it. They just said you have to do it. They never gave us any like insight to it, if you get what I mean. Hold on, I'll show you an example. This is an example of one of my sketchbooks. So, I think this was the first book I had. You would have the title page, obviously. And then I had stuff like that, like mind maps and stuff. But I didn't really, like, all I can remember him saying was, you need to make the pages look interesting, even if it's just something in the corner. But I wasn't very good at that because I'd never been taught how to do that, or the importance of it at least. Like, in all my old sketchbooks from high school, I literally did a drawing on a page and that was it. Like in this one I really did try. I put LP in the corner of every page, but like it was never good enough for him, and that's the main reason I failed art, was because I never made the pages look pretty. I just drew in my sketchbook, which is what you're meant to do. Like, I didn't see the point in making it look pretty. We fucking stop. And there was so much analysis of all the drawings you had to do. It made no sense to me. Like, art in school is honestly, when they're telling you you have to do all this analysis and all this writing, it's just a way of trying to grade your artwork without... It's a way to give people that don't have artistic talent yet, or is still developing their artistic talent, a way to like be graded. But obviously I just didn't care. I did not care. Like, that was cool. That's the only cool thing I ever did. And it pissed me off because I got such a bad grade for all my work. Like, I worked really hard in art. I tried so hard. My final pieces were actually pretty good. And he was like, no. Also, the other reason I didn't get my grade is I got an E was because he didn't give in one of my final pieces. It was the day where we like handed in all our work, we put labels and stuff. For example, like that label there, that's what we had to put on all our work. And I had this massive fuck off canvas. It was only A3, I don't know why. I had this massive canvas and I went up to him and I was like, hey, what do I do with this? And he was like, it's fine, give it to me, I'll hand it in for you. Okay. Cut to like a couple months later when I'm going back to get my work. Because you could go back and get all your sketchbooks and stuff. I couldn't find it with the rest of my work and I was like, that's weird. Where's my work? So I went up to him and I found him and I was like, hey, they didn't have my canvas, the one I gave to you to give in. And then he walked me into the classroom and he was like, oh, it's here, I'm sorry. And I was just like, you've destroyed my grade because you forgot to give it in. Like, you could have just said, oh, just go over there and get them to sort it out, instead of saying, I'll do it, don't worry, if you knew you were gonna forget. It pisses me off so much. Like, if I ever want to go work in, like, I don't know, if I ever go for a job in an art studio now, I have to explain to them why I got an E in art. It's because he didn't give them a fucking one. The fucking stupid grading system. The only thing I learned in my high school was how to draw a realistic human face. So that was the only reason I started like caring about art. I only started caring about art the year I left high school. So when I first went to the school, I had to give in a portfolio to be like, hey, I want to take art, here's some of my artwork. Here's an example of this bitch. Because I majoritively drew in manga / anime style. That was the style I was kind of learning, but I also did some realism pieces, like portraits and that. I think I have some examples that I can show you. When I went to him, he was like, you do realise we're not going to be doing anime and manga? Like, I don't want you drawing in that style for these courses. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm drawing in realistic style then. Cut to like half a year later, it's almost the end of the school year, we're on our second project. No, we're on the first project, because at this point in my sketchbook. And he tells another kid in my class, oh, do you know what style you should try? Manga or anime. Go ahead, do it. I'm just like, I've been teaching myself how to draw that for the past 4 years and you just randomly go to this guy, you should try it with the manga style. Pissed me off. It pissed me off. I don't, like, I know it didn't suit the project I had chosen, but he told me that before I chose my project, that I wasn't allowed to do that. And it pissed me off so much. So when we got our next project after that one, I purposefully made it manga and anime just to spite him. Plus I did love drawing that way, like I still draw like that today, and I do realism on the side. I don't want to be super hyper realistic. I want to draw kind of like concept artists do, like Ross draws and stuff like that. That's the type of art I wanted to create, and he took that away from me. Because he's always right, but he's not, because he's a twat. Okay. So go back to what I said a little while ago, where I said like he hated me and Aoife, and he continued to hate Aoife. He didn't like me and didn't treat me like a person, because when you're in college you have a relationship with your teacher where you can call them by their first name, and you kind of treat them kind of like a manager would treat an employee, but he would treat everyone else in this class like they were magical, most talented people in the whole wide world. But then you cut to me and Aoife and he's just like barely treating us like people. That is until I had a panic attack at school and I started going through this process of telling my school or my college that I did have mental illness problems. I hadn't been diagnosed with anything yet, but I did have them. Just want to quickly note that my high school did not transfer any of this information to my college. They didn't tell my college that I was suffering with mental illness problems or that I was in school therapy or behavioural unit. They never told my college any of this, so this was the first time my college was finding out about any of this. Thanks for interrupting my recording. And I was seeing the school therapist, which didn't help at all. Like, there was no point to that. But it did give me the freedom to use that space, because they had like a separate space for people who would have panic attacks all the time. Took that away from me in the second year, but fuck you too. So only then, when it was out that I did have anxiety, and the reason I was so bad at my schoolwork was that did he actually start treating me like a person and actually was kinder to me just so I wouldn't have a breakdown. And I was just like, dude, that's so fucked up. Going on to my next point, he treated Aoife like absolute shit. And I watched this happen and I wish I was more confident back then, but then again I wasn't. I was still in the stage of having this massive mental breakdown because all these years I thought I was fine, and then all of a sudden I realised, holy shit, there's something wrong with me. So I was having this massive breakdown, so I couldn't really do anything about it. And I wish I could have, because fuck, this was so fucked up. He purposely was targeting Aoife, and I honestly think Aoife gave up on the subject because of this teacher. Like, if she had a good enough teacher, she wouldn't have given up as fast as she did. She's not very good at like explaining herself. She's a really good artist though, and because she wasn't very good at explaining herself, he would nitpick everything she did. Like, she used to write in her book in pencil so that she could rub it out and change it if she needed to, and then she was going to write in pen when she knew she had finished the idea. But he would always check it when it was in pencil, and then he would tell her off for doing it in pencil. One time he told me off for using fucking tape in my book because I didn't have glue, and he was like, you need to go buy yourself glue, and I was just like, oh fuck you too then, not all of us are fucking rich. There was one specific time when we were at the point where we were working on our final projects, and we were doing sketchbook work sometimes, and then sometimes we're working on whatever we needed to. Louise from the future is going to tell you this mini part of the story, because Louise from the past cannot stop rambling and tell a story straight. Basically, our teacher had said, you don't need to bring in your book if you don't need to do anything in it. You only bring in your book if you're doing something in it. Aoife wasn't doing anything in her book that day. That's a setup for the story you need. And she came in the next day and he was like, where's your sketchbook? And she was like, I didn't bring it because I didn't need it today. I'm not working in it today. And he got so pissed off because that one reason. And he sent her to work in the computer room, even though she didn't need to, just because he couldn't look at her. Like, I get teachers need to check up on their students and check up on their work But to send someone out of the room because they didn't bring the sketchbook on the day that they didn't need to work in their sketchbook is honestly fucked up. This dude was so fucked up. He would do shit like that to Aoife all the time. Aoife was going through a very hard time in college, and I'm not gonna tell you that because that's her business. But what I can tell you is it was like a big deal, and it was a big part of her life. Obviously the school didn't know that, and they never did know that because she never told them, because Aoife's the type of person not to tell people when she's going through big shit unless it will like get outed, or she'll tell her close friends but she won't tell anyone professional like a teacher or someone like that. Like, it's the same thing with me. I don't tell people about my mental illness all the time because it's really hard to bring up, like, hey, I'm severely depressed. She was going through so much shit and he was just on her all the fucking time. It was honestly terrifying to watch it. Like, sometimes she would be late and it would be for a good reason. Aoife just has problems with sleeping. She has to sleep with her earphones in and listen to music when she sleeps, so she can never really hear her alarm when it goes off, and she tries her best to get to college on time all the time, but sometimes she's late. It's just the thing. And because she was so frequently late to this class, he would treat her like shit every time she came late. But oh my god, it was just disgraceful the way he was treating her. It's not even that, like, he singled out me and Aoife. It seriously felt like we were singled out in terms of like keeping an eye on me. And this is gonna sound like the worst part. This is the main part of that year that I remember. That year was the year I got my first like proper boyfriend. I hate his guts now. But even like, this was fucked up. This teacher had a problem where when he was in college, he was so involved in his relationship it made him fail all his courses. And he told us this when we first started. And he kept projecting that onto me because I had a boyfriend, and he knew I did. He thought that because of my boyfriend, I was going to fail all my courses. No, not because of my mental illness and anxiety and depression that makes it really hard to do any kind of work. No, it's because of my fucking boyfriend. Because I'm spending too much time with my boyfriend. My boyfriend, who was really smart, is really smart, and was doing maths and shit like that, and would never put like me before schoolwork. I know that sounds really bad, but that was most of our relationship. And that's why we broke up. But he was honestly like very good with setting boundaries when it came to like getting work done. And that boyfriend was the same boyfriend that made me sit down and do sketchbook work when I was too depressed to do it. And he would come sit and he would do work with me, and he would force me to do my work. I still hate his guts and he's still a bitch, but still that. But this teacher kept projecting the fact that this boyfriend was causing me to not do my work. That like, anytime he saw me with this boyfriend. One time, Aoife and my boyfriend were doing work in the computer lab, and this was the time that I picked up digital art, so I had to go work in the computer lab. And I sat next to them because I thought, okay, I'm not gonna go sit on the other side of the room, that's just weird. So I sat next to them two because I could talk to Aoife about art, and I wasn't distracted or anything. I was sitting there doing my artwork with my headphones in. I wasn't talking to them. And he came in and he kicked my boyfriend out of the computer lab and told them to go off because they were distracting me. And I was just like, I wasn't talking to them. I had my headphones in so I wouldn't talk to them, and I was staring at my screen drawing. Because he kept projecting that idea that that boyfriend was distracting me, and he didn't want me to get distracted because he saw potential in me, and I was just like, I fucking hate you. I have never hated anyone as much as I hate this teacher, my old school bully, and my ex-boyfriend. And basically he made me hate art and photography in general. I didn't pick it up in the second year. There was this bridging point at the end of our first year where we had to start our project for the next year, and it was to give us a taste of what would happen in the second year. But for people like me and Aoife, who had just been bullied by a teacher for a whole year and broken down by our favourite things, like, we love art and photography, we're very creative people. Aoife's very good at photography, I'm good at art, Aoife's good at art. You know what I'm trying to say, we're good at it. And we had to like plan this whole essay, and this teacher was shitting on Aoife and me because we didn't like plan the essay, and we're like, it's not till next year, we don't even know if we're going to take this subject next year. He was just on us all the time. It was exhausting. It was emotionally exhausting for me, and I can't imagine how bad it was for Aoife. But it's at the point now where I rarely do photography anymore. I do art all the time just because I know I can create things with art, but photography, if I want to go do a photo shoot, I really don't want to do it. Because I just think back to my photography course and that teacher. I think it really affected my love for photography more than anything, because I did have to watch my best friend get bullied for a year by a teacher. And I told this all to my mum, and my mum's sister, she works for like safety in schools and shit like that. I don't actually know what her job is. I just know that she does look into stuff like that. And even she said that's outright bullying of a student. This is something I originally left out because it was something Aoife never really wanted people to know up until I asked her. She's always tried her best to hide the way she's feeling, so it's been hard at times for me to reach her, but recently she gave me permission to tell this moment, or just tell you what happened with the teacher, between her and this teacher, because I was there when it happened. This isn't me regurgitating it from Aoife, this is like what I saw. She mainly wanted me to tell you guys because it is important to just show you how much of an asshole this guy was and how much power he had over the strongest person I know. She's really matured recently in terms of like opening up about how she's feeling, and I'm really proud of her for that. So without further ado, I'm gonna tell you something, or like tell you a mini story within a story time of something that shocked me to my core. And it sounds dramatic, but I had to write it down so I didn't forget anything. And I'm a dramatic writer, so here we go. I've already explained that he was targeting her continuously. He stopped targeting me after it had been outed that I was diagnosed with anxiety and stuff. So we had a career day, and I think it was on a career day. All I know, it was a day at the end of the year when we had that bridging point where we had to start our next year's project. That's all I know, it's the day. So I'm pretty sure it was a career day. Aoife had to speak to him about her second year project because she was having some rough time with her ideas, and she needed to tell him what basic ideas she had for the project. The project was an essay on something to do with art. Mine was about how important digital art is to today's society, because a lot of people are transitioning from traditional to digital. You didn't see that. Traditional to digital. Yes, I keep it next to my desk to inspire me. Hers was all about mirrors, if I remember correctly. And as we were walking up the stairs to tell him this, or before that, she told me all her ideas, so I knew she had her ideas. I knew they were fleshed out, and I knew they were going to be good when she was able to tell him this. But it didn't go well. can I just emphasize the fact that this was the bridging point to the second year. We didn't know if we were going to be able to continue doing art and photography in the next year. We didn't know if we'd be kicked off the course for low grades. We didn't know if we wanted to continue doing it or if we wanted to try something different next year. So this was a very weird time where we were serious enough about the project to get things done for the checkpoints and stuff and get it done for the month, but after that we didn't really care because we didn't know if we were going to continue the subject in the second year. Them two walk off a tiny bit down the corridor and I'm standing there and I'm listening to them this whole time. I'm playing on my phone but I'm listening, and he asks her about her ideas for the project. And if you know me or Aoife, or you know most people who are shy, they get really flustered around teachers, really flustered around people with authority. And this was clearly written all over Aoife's face. I cannot talk, I'm sorry. It was clearly written all over her face that she was flustered and she was shy and she was a bit frantic because she knew how important it would be to tell him her ideas, because if she didn't get that across, he would be a bitch to her. He can clearly see that she's flustered. I'm looking at them and I can see she's flustered. And it's not just my best friend intuition. As a normal human being, you can see when someone's flustered. She's having a hard time telling him her ideas. Bear in mind, she had told me all these ideas like 5 minutes ago and I thought they were great. And he just starts shouting at her, "Why haven't you got your ideas? You should really start taking this seriously." Again, didn't know if we were going to be doing the second year. Again, didn't know if we were going to be kicked off the course for bad grades. For the first time in almost 2 years of being good friends with Aoife, I saw her cry. And it was horrible. It was crying from embarrassment. Now here's a point I really need to emphasize. Aoife doesn't cry in front of people. She doesn't show negative emotions in the same way that I do, where I cry on camera or I talk about my problems. She likes to keep that stuff very personal, very private. She tells me because I'm her best friend, and she knows that I won't understand it because of all my mental problems and how I've been treated my whole life. But we were in college, we're in a public place, and she would not cry in front of this teacher. She would not let herself do that. But in that moment, when she was embarrassed and he had just shouted at her for no good reason, it was too much and she burst out crying. My friends at the time, who are all boys and are not very in touch with their emotions, were looking for us. So we had to like go to a bathroom and hide so that she could compose herself. It was honestly really shocking for me to see the strongest person I knew just start crying. She's been my best friend for almost 6 years. Fucking hell. She's been my best friend for 6 years and very rarely have I seen her cry like this. It's in the utmost rare occasions when life is really truly becoming too much for us that we cry like that, in front of each other at least. This grown-ass man who's meant to be a teacher and is meant to take care of us and meant to guide us just targeted her and bullied her to the point where she broke down crying. And I can sincerely say with all of my heart that I hate him for that, because he made my best friend cry. And I know it sounds like some kind of like anime, "You made my best friend cry, so I must kill you now" type shit, like fucking Deku or Natsu or whatever, but it really does make me hate people when they hurt Aoife like that, because she is just the type of person who doesn't deal with these things publicly, she does it privately, and it's just annoying. But I didn't include that in the original video because back then she didn't want anyone to know she cried, and more recently she's matured in the way that she was like, you need to tell people that he made me cry. So I'm proud of that. I'm a proud mama. But yeah, you can continue back on the video now. And if he's watching this, I don't care. Like, I don't go to that school anymore. Anyway, that's the video. This is probably very long and rambly. I'm sorry, editing Louise. I'm really sorry. You better be. I wasted 4 hours of my life on this shit. I hope you guys enjoyed it though. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and share with your friends. Grow the channel. We're on 952. 900? What? When did that happen? We're on 300 and... No! We're on 292, and it'd be great if we can get to 300 or something. I don't know what I'm saying. Subscribe, join, and see more videos like this, and join the Discord to interact with me and other subscribers. You'll get notified when videos are out. Click the bell thingy-majingy. Follow me on my social media for updates and to know when I'm doing my Q&A. I'm not sure when I'm doing it yet. And thank you for watching.